What's the hubbub? The curious case of the missing SnyderVerse YouTuber. There was a time when certain SnyderVerse YouTube channels could barely go 48 hours without talking about James Gunn and the DCU. Every casting announcement was a crisis. Every costume reveal was a disaster. Every trailer was apparently the final nail in the coffin. James Gunn could post a picture of his lunch and someone would have a 35-minute video uploaded before he finished eating.
Sounds like it's not really going to be a lantern show. No cosmic threats. You know, them not really being Green Lantern. So I don't know. I guess we shall see when the show comes out in 2026, but the nail is in the coffin. I've been hearing the news about Netflix's WB turned down Paramount's hostile bid, so the time is up pretty much. So I guess at the end of the day, we shall see. But like I said, I have no hope in lanterns.
The gun has jammed. He finally lost it. The DCU is in shambles. Zack Snyder would never. The content machine was more DCU than Snyder. A 5-second costume reveal could become a live stream. A casting rumor could generate 3 reaction videos. James Gunn could sneeze in the general direction of DC Studios, and somebody would already have a thumbnail ready. Then lanterns happened, and something extraordinary happened. The reviews started coming in, and they were really good, like really good. Critics started praising the performances, the writing, the mystery, the atmosphere, and the overall quality of the show. Suddenly, the same people who couldn't stop talking about the DCU developed a remarkable interest in literally anything else. Crickets, birds chirping, a tumbleweed rolling across YouTube. Now they are in hiding and probably waiting to dog on whatever view count data is available, so that way then can criticize something. They are actually disappointed that it isn't bad. You've got to take their DC fan card away at some point. Somewhere, a SnyderVerse YouTuber is frantically scrolling through the news trying to find something else to talk about, like Cosmic Book News bringing some story about Zack Snyder ready to make the Dark Knight Returns adaptation. When is that story made up, by the way? Right when Lanterns starts blowing up in good reviews. The Dark Knight Returns, just in time to save the algorithm. Oh, what a remarkable coincidence. Just as Lanterns starts coming out and the reviews begin looking suspiciously good, suddenly Zack Snyder and The Dark Knight Returns are back in the news. What are the odds? I mean, truly, after years of waiting for the SnyderVerse to somehow rise from the grave, suddenly there is a new rumor about Snyder potentially making The Dark Knight Returns. And wouldn't you know it, the timing couldn't possibly be more interesting, because Lanterns is arriving with critics praising the performances, the writing, the mystery, and the chemistry between Kyle Chandler and Aaron Pierre.
Loudmouth, unfiltered, sticking his foot in his mouth quite often. I think they're those things I brought to the screen personally into Hal.
Just having the opportunity to be rock stars with them, it's such a joy and it's such a privilege to be able to be in the position that we're in and have these dreams realized. So just to have fun, be grateful, and have a blast.
Some reviews are even calling it one of the strongest DC projects yet. And suddenly, Zack Snyder Dark Knight Returns rumor. Everybody look over there. Quick! Don't look at lanterns. Look at Batman. Batman is old. Batman is angry. Zack Snyder might make Dark Knight Returns. This is not a drill. Meanwhile, Lanterns is sitting quietly in the corner like, guys, I'm getting really good reviews. Shh, but critics seem to love me. It's almost as if the internet has been handed a giant emergency distraction. Snyder has previously expressed interest in making a live-action adaptation of The Dark Knight Returns, so the concept isn't completely pulled out of thin air. He also expressed interest in making a Star Wars movie, and out of not being selected to do so, he made Rebel Moon. Ouch. But watching certain corners of the fandom suddenly become intensely interested in this rumor at precisely the moment Lanterns is getting praised is absolutely hilarious, because these are some of the same people who spent years reacting to every single James Gunn DCU announcement, casting announcement, video, trailer, video, poster, video. James Gunn changes his profile picture, 3 videos and a live stream. But Lanterns gets strong reviews. Suddenly everybody has discovered the art of meditation. I'm not going to react to this. Why? Because it's positive. But you reacted when the trailer was bad. Those were different times, different how. The reviews weren't good then, and that's really the funny part. If Lanterns had been terrible, the YouTube thumbnails would have been produced at industrial scale. Gunn has failed. DCU in complete chaos. We told you so. Zack Snyder was right. There would be emergency live streams, there would be 45-minute breakdowns, there would be dramatic music, there would probably be somebody explaining how the failure of one Green Lantern show proves Warner Brothers should immediately call Zack Snyder. But instead, Lanterns is getting strong reviews. And suddenly, Zack Snyder, Dark Knight Returns, Batman. It's almost too perfect. And again, nobody has to hate Zack Snyder. Nobody has to stop wanting the Snyderverse. Nobody has to pretend they don't want to see Snyder make The Dark Knight Returns. If that happens, great. Make the movie, enjoy it, celebrate it. But don't tell us for 5 years that you're interested in every development in DC and then suddenly become fascinated by a completely different rumor the moment the James Gunn DCU produces something people actually like. Because that's when it starts looking less like fandom and more like an emergency change of subject. Hey guys, what do you think about Lanterns? Oh, Zack Snyder likes Batman. Yes, but Lanterns? Sorry, no. But the reviews, wait, I am coping. But people are saying it's one of the best DC shows. I'm Batman. At this point, the algorithm isn't even subtle. The real nightmare scenario wasn't that Lanterns would fail. The nightmare scenario was that it would succeed. And now here we are. The DCU has another potential win. James Gunn's DCU is actually starting to work. This is a gigantic step and momentum towards Man of Tomorrow, the Superman sequel coming out next year. The interesting thing about Lanterns is that James Gunn seems to be using it as a bridge between two seemingly opposite sides of DC, the colorful, mythology-heavy comic book world established by Superman, and the grounded crime thriller sensibility associated with Matt Reeves' The Batman. Gunn has explicitly said that Superman and Lanterns have deliberately different tones while existing in the same connected universe. Lanterns is built as a grounded HBO crime drama, while Superman embraces the more fantastical side of DC Comics. You don't necessarily need the entire universe to have one tone. Superman can have flying dogs, giant monsters, superhero friends, alien technology, and an enormous comic book mythology. Gunn has openly said he wanted to bring that fuller comic book world. Okay, Lanterns, now let's look at this world from the perspective of two cops investigating a murder. That's where the Reeves comparison becomes interesting. The Batman doesn't need to make Gotham less comic booky to feel grounded. It simply filters the comic book mythology through a crime story. That's what Lanterns appears to be doing. Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart aren't being stripped of the Green Lantern mythology. They're being placed inside a detective story. The show has been described as a buddy cop mystery influenced by True Detective, with the characters investigating a murder in Nebraska while the larger cosmic mythology gradually builds. You get the grounded human entry point that makes the story accessible, while slowly revealing the comic book insanity underneath it. That's arguably exactly what the DCU needs, because if Superman establishes, yes, this world really does have superheroes, aliens, monsters, and impossible comic book mythology, then Lanterns can establish, yes, but these people still have to investigate murders, deal with relationships, make mistakes, and live in recognizable communities. Those two ideas don't contradict each other. They actually make the universe feel bigger. And that's where Gunn's approach could be much smarter than simply trying to make every DC project look like Superman. He has repeatedly said he wants DC projects to have different identities rather than forcing everything into the same tonal box. So you can have Superman, classic comic book adventure, Lanterns, grounded detective thriller, Supergirl, cosmic space fantasy, Clayface, horror. Superman is the big, optimistic, colorful comic book adventure. Also existing, we have Peacemaker, the filthy, R-rated, absurd, violent, emotionally damaged comedy. And yet they're all happening in the same verse. It's not just sepia environments. That's much closer to how comic books actually work. And Lanterns may be the proof of concept. The really clever part is that it doesn't have to choose between comic book and grounded. It can say, what if a grounded crime drama happened in a comic book universe? That's basically the sweet spot between Gunn's Superman and Reeves' Batman. And if the rave reviews are any indication, that combination may actually be working. Which makes the whole Snyderverse discourse even funnier, because the argument was often framed as though DC had to choose between Snyder's seriousness and Gunn's comic book weirdness. But Gunn's DCU seems increasingly interested in saying, why choose? Give Superman the giant monsters. Give Lanterns the murder investigation. Give Clayface the horror angle. Give Supergirl the cosmic adventure. Let the universe contain all of it. That's not tonal inconsistency. That's a universe. They keep searching for anything to get those loyal Snyder bros watching to dunk on the DCU. Breaking news, James Gunn breathed today. Anything, literally anything. Because admitting Lanterns is good creates a rather serious problem. If you've spent years telling your audience that James Gunn is destroying DC, that the DCU is doomed, that everything Gunn touches is going to fail, and that the Snyderverse was the only hope for the franchise, what exactly are you supposed to say when the new Lanterns show starts getting rave reviews? Guys, unfortunately, we have encountered a technical issue with today's live stream. What technical issue? Lanterns is actually good, wallets open, and that's where the whole thing becomes hilarious. Nobody is asking these people to suddenly become James Gunn fans. You can love Zack Snyder, you can prefer Man of Steel, you can still want the Snyderverse restored. You can dislike Superman, you can dislike the entire direction of the new DCU. That's perfectly legitimate. But if your entire YouTube channel was built around reacting to every single thing the Gunn DCU did, while confidently predicting that it would all fail, and then Lanterns succeeds, maybe you should talk about it, especially when you spent years telling everyone that you would. The silence is what makes it so funny. These channels didn't suddenly lose their internet connection. They didn't all go on vacation. They didn't collectively discover gardening. They just seem to have discovered that ignoring something is much easier than explaining why it didn't fit the narrative. Imagine spending years waiting for the DCU to fail, and then Green Lantern walks into the room like, "Hey guys, critics seem to love me," and suddenly everybody needs a minute. The irony is almost too perfect. The people who couldn't stop reacting to the DCU are now reacting by not reacting to the DCU. That's elite levels of content creation. And perhaps the most painful realization of all is this. Maybe James Gunn wasn't actually incapable of making good DC projects. Maybe the DCU isn't automatically doomed. Maybe Lanterns is just good. And if that's true, some of these YouTube channels are going to have to perform the most difficult task imaginable. Update the thumbnail. Because apparently the headline, James Gunn DCU is dead, doesn't work quite as well when the critics are saying, actually, this is pretty damn good. The funny thing is, the Snyderverse itself isn't even the problem here. If you genuinely believe Zack Snyder made the best version of DC, fantastic. Argue for it, celebrate it, make your videos, talk about why you love those movies. But when your entire identity becomes predicting the failure of everything that comes after Snyder, eventually reality is going to walk through the door and ask you to update the script. And Lanterns may be that moment. Because this isn't some obscure project nobody cares about. This is Green Lantern, a character whose movie reputation has been radioactive for years, and now the new DCU has managed to put Lanterns on screen and get people talking about it as one of the strongest things DC has produced. That's not exactly the apocalypse some channels were expecting. So now we're witnessing the Great Lantern's silence. The Green Lantern has arrived, the reviews are strong, people are watching, critics are impressed, and somewhere on YouTube, a Snyderverse channel is staring at the upload button like it's a Green Lantern power ring. Do I use it? No. Why? Because then I'd have to admit Lanterns is good. And just like that, the greatest superpower in the DC universe isn't the Green Lantern ring, it's selective silence. The same channels that once couldn't stop reacting to every James Gunn announcement have suddenly mastered the ancient art of pretending something doesn't exist. Honestly, it's impressive. If Lanterns had been terrible, the thumbnails would have been ready within seconds. Gunn has failed with Lanterns, DCU out for good. I told you so, but because Lanterns is getting rave reviews, suddenly everyone has other plans. Maybe they're busy, maybe they're tired, maybe their Wi-Fi is down, maybe they're studying for the bar exam. Okay, more likely to be at a bar, or even more likely at home drinking alone.
They're just jokes. We're all gonna die soon, and there's no sequel.
Who knows? All we know is that Green Lantern has apparently discovered a new power, the ability to make certain YouTube channels disappear, and perhaps that's the real twist, not that James Gunn made a good Lanterns show, not that critics are praising it, not that the DCU might actually be working. The real twist is watching people who spent years demanding that everyone accept the reality of the Snyderverse suddenly become extremely uncomfortable with a different reality. Lanterns is good, and apparently that was the one plot twist they weren't prepared for. With that, it's today's hubbub, and an L in the form of Lanterns delivers a huge L as in loss to the Restore SnyderVerse hopes. As another DCU project succeeds, it only pushes their silly hoax rumors further away. No SnyderVerse, no problem. Please like and subscribe to the hubbub. Take care of yourselves and others, super friends.